I'm Shurbi Sharma, your host for the day. And on behalf of the Harmony Foundation, it is indeed a happy moment for the Harmony Foundation to be having the conference offline this year. Come on, let's clap for finally being able to gather offline and be part of something so significant. Due to the pandemic, as we all know, the Students' Conference was organized virtually in 2021, and it is indeed a very, very happy moment for the Harmony Foundation to be having the conference once again offline this year. The Harmony Foundation was founded in October 2005 by Dr. Abraham Mathai as an initiative to have a cohesive contribution amongst community to come together and be able to support and help communities across without any discrimination against caste, creed, religion, or region. Each year, the Harmony Foundation identifies a theme for its annual Harmony International Students Conference and the prestigious Mother Teresa Memorial Awards for Social Justice that highlights the need of the hour, an issue that is very, very relevant in today's time. Before that, we would like to see a video which is produced by the Harmony Foundation reflecting upon the struggles and the challenges that the refugees and the refugee children have been going through. It is so important to reflect upon it. Can we please have the video?
सागर दीदी, आप आज इतने उदास क्यों लग रहे हो?
सरोश, मुझे बाबा जान की बहुत याद आ रही है आज। जब हम अफ़गानिस्तान में थे ना, उन्होंने मेरे बर्थडे पे मुझे एक कप गिफ्ट किया था। और जब हम इंडिया आ रहे थे, उस कप का हैंडल टूट गया। मैंने आज भी उसे संभाल के रखा है।
ख्यालों के कब्र से मुर्दे जिंदा उठने लगे, मौत बिकने लगी सरेआम बाजार में। यूं शुरू हुआ लाशों का सावन, बह गया जिसमें खामोश मातम। फिर भी जिंदा है सपने, जिंदा है वजूद। टूटते हुए इन तारों का कोई तो आशियाना होगा।
Hello, my name is Asim and I'm 13 years old. My dream is to become a businessman. मेरा एक दोस्त का नाम था यूसुफ और एक दूसरे का नाम था नाइब। कभी कभी हम जाते थे पार्क में, जो पार्क था वहाँ पे एक टिकट लेते थे हमसे 20 रुपए में, तो हम पूरा हफ्ता पैसे जमा करके तो हम वहाँ पे साथ में खेलने जाते थे। मैं बहुत मिस करता हूँ। अभी तालिबान आ गए थे और जो पार्क था वो पूरा उड़ा डाला। मुझे अपने मम्मी पापा को पूरी दुनिया दिखाना है।
My name is Mino. I'm 12 years old. I'm from Iran. I'm going to talk about my first and last wish. That is, I want to be an actress.
Indian people are so good because when we want something, they give us, and then they will say, "You can give me later."
हाय, मेरा नाम अबूजर है। इन कंप्यूटर में जो ड्राइंग करते हैं और पढ़ाई करते हैं और थोड़ा सा गेम खेलते हैं, अच्छा लगता है।
ड्रीम तो लोग हज़ारों देखते हैं, चाहे वो ख्वाब में हो या फिर हकीकत में। उससे क्या फ़र्क पड़ता है, बट सपने देखने का हक सबको होता है। मेरा सपना है डॉक्टर बनना।
ما سنام ملالی ما 11 سالی خو ما میخوای آینده पुलिस जोशनी हेल्प करना है ना, चोटों पटाना है।
I think you should follow your dreams and achieve your goals, and if you can't do that, it's okay, but never give up.
آرزوی من، بزرگترین آرزوی من است که درایور شم، درایور فرمول 1، مثلا مثل مسابقات جهانی، یکی مثل مایکل شوماخر.
I want to become a soccer player just like Cristiano Ronaldo. Yes, everybody can if they trust and believe themselves.
मेरा नाम आसिया है। आसिया एक फरिश्ता का नाम है। फ्यूचर में मुझे एयर होस्टेल या पायलट बनना है। उन्हीं दो सपनों में से मुझे बहुत सारे सपने भी पूरे करने हैं।
My name is Mariam Amini and I'm 13 years old. My biggest dream is I want to become a good actress and a judge. मुझे आमिर खान बहुत पसंद है।
हेलो, मेरा नाम तमीम है। मैं अफ़गानिस्तान से हूँ और पिछले 5 साल से इंडिया में रह रहा हूँ। एक इंस्टीट्यूट है दिल्ली में, गंधर्व महाविद्यालय। 4 साल से वहाँ सीख रहा हूँ इंडियन क्लासिकल म्यूज़िक वोकल में। जैसे हिंदी में एक लाइन है, कोशिश करने वाले की हार नहीं होते है। तो मेरा भी यही सोच है कि अगर आप किसी चीज़ को चाहते हो, आप उसको टारगेट बनाओ और हार्ड वर्क कर दो, एक दिन ज़रूर आपको मिलेगा।
हेलो एवरीवन, मेरा नाम उस्मान है और मैं अफ़गानिस्तान से हूँ। मेरा ड्रीम है कि मैं एक रैपर बनूँ। मेरा एक दोस्त था जो कि बहुत अच्छी तरीके से रैपिंग करता, तो मैंने उससे बोला था कि मेरे को आप ये गाना सुना सकते हो, मेरे को सिखा सकते हो। तो उन्होंने बोला नहीं, तुम ये बिल्कुल नहीं कर सकते, तुमको ये आता नहीं है और तुम कर भी नहीं सकते। तभी से मैंने ठान लिया था कि मैं रैपिंग करूँगा, हार्ड वर्क करूँगा, हार्ड स्टडी करूँगा। बारिश हो रही बाहर पर मैं कमरे में अकेला, अंधेरा भरा जालिम मुझे सोने ही नहीं दे रहा। मैं 2 घंटे से लिखने की कोशिश ही कर रहा हूँ। मैं अपने घर पे घर बना के बैठा।
चांद यहाँ भी है, चांद वहां भी था, पर यहाँ चांद आजाद है, आजाद है उसकी रोशनी। हंसते हुए चांद की यह है नई कहानी। आओ दोस्तों, इन ख्वाबों को हकीकत में बदलते हैं। आजाद रोशनी की स्याही से खुद का मुकद्दर लिखते हैं।
वो पल सुकून के दिए जाना मारू, हरदम मेरी निगाह है, हरदम मेरी निगाह ढूंढती राहें जहाँ तू।
I think as a girl, it's really important to be seen and feel the safe environment which we live. And inshallah, I will see myself to sit in chair of President of Afghanistan, the first female president.
So wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I hope one day we will see you as President of Afghanistan and you liberate the nation.
Thank you. I hope.
Can we all please give a loud applause for such a beautiful video? Thank you so much, Harmony Foundation, for reaching out to them. And indeed, as much as it sounds emotional, but what is it? Everybody has the right to dream. Everybody should get the opportunities to convert and translate those dreams to realities. And as mentioned, each year the conference revolves around a pertinent social issue in the world, and this year is no different. This year we have come together to address a topic that has become increasingly relevant in recent time. This year's theme is Compassion Beyond Borders, addressing the issues and challenges of refugee children. And our knowledge partner is the Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai, under the guidance of Dr.K.M.Parivelan. Our panel of distinguished speakers today is really impressive. These have been people who have given their lives to work towards these causes and displayed such compassion and will aid in addressing the manifold issues and challenges confronting refugees, especially children, allowing us to empathize with their plight, which we are often oblivious in our own comfort. To bring it to notice, the purpose of this conference is pretty simple. It is to ignite the passion that exists inside the heart of each one of us by the virtue of just being human. In the comfort of our living room, we see news reports from different parts of the world about refugees' plight, yet we are not moved with compassion for how their situations can be remedied on a long-term basis. As an individual, what can I do that makes a difference in their life? So we see those crises as headlines and statistics, but today, these wonderful panelists who have joined us, they are the ones who we want to put faces up and tell you the stories behind those numbers. Our speakers today have in-depth insight and will be able to take us beyond what the news channels bring to us, and that which we forget immediately once the news channel TV is changed. Their pertinent perspective aim to move us to be part of the solution. I hope the conference will make you more aware of the need to work with individuals and organizations and collectivism as an effort so that we can address and be with like-minded individuals and groups to create a safe and secure environment for everyone, and especially with in mind refugee children today. Before I invite the distinguished speakers to take over, I would request each one of us to kindly put our phones on silent mode or on flight mode, and so that we together can enjoy and really take enriching insights from this conference. I would now like to invite Harmony Foundation's founder chairman, Dr. Abraham Mathai, to share a few words. Please put your hands up together for Dr. Mathai.
At the outset, I'd like to apologize for I think that video had some bad sound. I don't know, there was some technical problem, but my apologies for the same. Yeah, thank you, Shurbi. My greetings to everyone. I'm immensely happy to have you all join us for this annual Harmony International Students Conference 2022. I extend my sincere gratitude to the Tata Institute of Social Science and especially Dr. Parivelan for partnering with us for the conference this year. The core purpose of our conference is to educate, sensitize, and engage the students and the youth who are our future leaders with the ways and means through which we can, as a civil society, address the pressing issues of our society. The world is currently dealing with the largest refugee population on record since World War II. While a full picture is yet to be established according to UNHCR website, forced displacement has reached 103 million at mid-2022, and 1.5 million children were born as refugees between 2018 and 2021 across the world. While we are at risk and challenges for all refugees, living an uprooted life has terribly adverse effects on children and youth. The tragedy of our time is that we live such sheltered lives in comfort zones that have made us totally oblivious and insensitive to the plight of others. It's time that we explore possible ways of showing compassion and empathy to the victims of such afflictions. Today, Harmony Foundation aspires to be part of the solution to this problem and to sensitize you to the same that has afflicted humanity so severely. The Harmony Foundation also envisions to start the Child to Child Connect, an initiative in association with the IIT Mumbai, by creating a mobile application that aims to connect refugee children with other children worldwide. Not only to sensitize children towards refugee children, but also to connect them as friends. We live in a fast-paced changing world where materialistic pursuits and illustrious careers are given top priority. Children in today's day and age are a part of this demanding world that places immense importance on competition and eminent careers for a materialistic, fulfilling life. But we truly believe that as these children should progress in their careers, but at the same time, they should also connect with such underprivileged and unfortunate children and in solidarity strive towards creating a much better and more compassionate world. I'm hopeful that through this conference today, you will not only garner pertinent knowledge on the issue, but you will also be able to empathize with the refugee children who are victims of such unfortunate circumstances. As I conclude, I would also like to apologize that two speakers of ours can't make it. That is John Abraham and Mr. Malice James will not be speaking at the conference. One of the speakers who didn't get her visa, but her name is Miss Helen Alstul. She'll be here online, and I'm extremely sorry for this. But I can assure you that our eminent speakers, Dr. Parivelan, Ms.Yasmine Sherif, Mr.Nicolo Govoni, and Dr.Dina Sidhva, who's now will be joining us soon, will share their expert views with us on the pressing issue and challenges faced by refugee children. And before you leave, you will surely have key learnings which will help you overall in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mathai. We are now at the section of the conference we have been really waiting for. Like, we all really want to hear from people who've been working for years with great experience, great passion towards these causes. And so our distinguished speakers will be sharing their perspective with us. Each speaker will be presenting for roughly 10 minutes. And after all of the speakers are done presenting, we will have the question and answer section. I request all of you to have your insights, pen down your questions so that we could have a holistic, not just a one-sided, but a perspective of the amazing students that have joined us today. Moving ahead, our first speaker of the day is Dr. Parivelan, who serves as an associate professor at the School of Law, Rights, and Constitutional Governance, and as chairperson of the Center for Statelessness and Refugee Studies at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. Previously, he had served as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and facilitated the voluntary repatriation of Sri Lankan refugees as part of the peace process. On behalf of the Harmony Foundation, I invite Dr. Parivelan, who will be sharing his insightful views on ethics of care and resilience of refugee children.
Very good afternoon, everyone. At the outset, I should share my profound thanks and gratitude to the Harmony Foundation and Dr. Abraham Mathai in particular for taking this initiative to do that. I know last few years he has been doing this program to bring awareness, to bring more of networks on people who work. I see a lot of very interesting, eminent panelists who are going to speak here. It's coming in. Okay, all right. The time is very short, 10 minutes to give an overview on what is happening on the refugee front overall and what way we could understand, show our compassion and empathy on this is something that we are trying to look at. We all know, the issues of refugees has been there for a very, very long time. It all started with World Wars, World War II. Post that, we have created even a formal refugee regime underneath the 1951 Convention on the Status of Refugees. And that's one trajectory we have, how globally we try to look at the refugee understanding, refugee protection and all that. On the other side, even as Dr. Mathai was mentioning, you have even historically many countries around the world, including India, has a history of compassion, history of empathy, and history of showing solidarity and support to the refugees. That has been there for a very, very long time. If I may bring in a bit of post-colonial perspective, which is very important for us from this part of the world. It is very important to see that how even the colonial structures have impacted the nation-state formations, and following which how the multiculturalism, diverse groups are accommodated, or a lack of it, which leads to the very violence or conflict or human rights violations, which leads to displacement of people we call as refugees. I'm sure most of the participants here will be aware of the definition of refugees. I will not go into that, but it is nevertheless very important to place in perspective what is there in the 51 Convention that we have for the refugees, somebody who is persecuted and who flees and crosses the international border, seeks protection elsewhere is where we understand. But there are also a lot of complexities associated with these issues of refugees, and there are a lot of gaps. Definitely we are understanding, particularly these 70 plus years of journey on refugee definition, refugee convention. We all know that we need to, broad base it in one way, how, we need to accommodate, even if there are refugees, not just from pure conflicts, not from wars, but there are also, people who are displaced due to climate and disasters today. There are a variety of other causations which keeps triggering. I'm sure when we are speaking now, right away we have a context of, Ukraine war going on, and in the European theater you have a lot of people being displaced as a context. As Dr. Abraham was also mentioning in the introductory note, that we have almost crossed 103 million people, which is a very high whooping numbers on forced migrants. What happens to these people? You have almost 75 to 80% of these people. The conflicts are also in the global south, and the people who are displaced are also in the global south. I think that is something also we need to take note of. It is the developing countries which are hosting a high number of refugees. Therefore, one has to look, that is in context. This is in general about the refugees, and we all know that our neighboring Bangladesh, for example, is hosting highest number of Rohingyas, almost 1 million, due to the displacement from Myanmar. We know the context of Iran and Afghanistan, which had pushed a lot of refugees into Pakistan. Pakistan was hosting high number of refugees till very recently. Now Turkey has taken over. We all know that because of the Syrian conflict in Middle East, or what we can call it as West Asia, that you have high number of refugees hosted. So you have historically we have the displacement of people, and we have had people who require the empathy and compassion. But what is also happening is a context where now you also have the closure of doors. In the last 1 or 2 decades, we have seen also the insensitivity emerging at the global level. Many nation states were closing their doors and not wanting to have refugees. So in this context, what happens to refugees themselves, and in particular what happens to the refugee children, is what we are going to deliberate. There are going to be experts who are going to speak more on refugee children more, but I would be sharing a more of an overview and look at how the ethics of care and protection is something very, very important for us. I see that necessity, particularly from the point of view of legal gaps, or what we can call as a legal vacuum. How do we still keep the framework of ethics of care, ethics of protection is something very important. I draw that from an Indian experience, how historically we have hosted the Zoroastrians or Parsi refugees in the 11th century, the Jews who fled earlier in the medieval period, as well as a very interesting resilient story of Polish refugees when they were persecuted during the World War II. A section of them have come into Gujarat. King Vijay Singh, there's a record that he had hosted them in the Indian state of Gujarat, and a beautiful story of how he took care of them for a while and then repatriated them when times were very conducive. So you have enormously many stories of that sort which goes on. In our case, we have in India today, as of now, Tibet refugees, we have Chakmas, Chin refugees, we have I do not know, is the PPT shared, is it available for the display from the organizing side, the PPT? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and complete it as an extempore, no problem. So, we have, all these Sri Lankan Tamil refugees are here for quite some time. And, you have all of them here. What happens to the refugees in general, and, what happens to the refugee children in particular? I would like to juxtapose here the need for us to look from 1951 convention, which talks the refugee protection in general, and the UN Child Rights Convention, the UNCRC, which is very important for us to emphasize on the importance of children, their participation, their role in the conflict, in the displacement. As we all know, in general, there is a data or statistics which is available, which says that it is usually 3/4 of the victims of forced migrants are women and children. Children almost constitute around 50% of the displaced population, the affected population, victims of violence, victims of war. Therefore, then, we need to have a more child-centric efforts to take care of their needs, take care of their protection. That is something very important. Here, I would like to, flag 2 or 3 examples. From our own Indian context, we do have a study conducted recently, on the Tibet refugees, and we found out that how they get actually a very good education. The visit to Dharamshala and observing how the children, the Tibet children who are displaced, we all know that there is almost a government on exile functioning here, and there is a tremendous hospitality given to the Tibet refugees. And they do have an education which is almost, on par with the best, where some of the schools we have visited, which are run by Tibets themselves, but funded, recognized and supported by the CBSE, the best model which we have in the country. That kind of an education reaches out to them. And we had an opportunity to witness some of the alumni who had come down, and where, you almost have many of them, now are into a variety of fields. They do contribute to their very Tibet Policy Institute. They contribute to, media. They contribute to very many civil society activities which they are engaged in. That is, I think, a story of resilience in itself, how the children are channeled to get good education, and that becomes part of the peace building or reconciliation. The second example I would like to flag is the Sri Lankan Tamil refugees. As we all know, post 83, the Sri Lankan conflict had displaced a lot of people, and India had hosted almost 450,000 people at different points of time. Even now, looking at it, you have roughly around 90,000 refugees who still live here. Again, I had a conversation very recently with an organization called OFFA, which is run by refugees themselves, an organization for refugees and run by refugees themselves. Myself and Dr. Dina, who is here, we visited. So where I was doing a detailed discussion on children and their educational role. I think they have done a tremendous advocacy with the government, and they are able to get the best education again for via government in all the government schools. That's something very interesting to see. And the point they've placed is also that if this education wasn't provided, these children would have probably been back to the country, been part of the civil war, probably would have heightened the conflict. It is a fact that they could be channeled into education, and then they were able to now complete their higher education and go into the field of medicine, in engineering. Many graduates who work in many companies. This is again a positive story, which is not much documented, not much highlighted, that they have availed the best of education and they are able to do so. So I think it is very important that we connect and provide the relevant educational model. But maybe there are other groups who may not enjoy somebody coming from Somalia, Sudan, Nigeria, or even from Myanmar. Some of these refugees who come are not yet under the gambit of a formal organized support, which I think we need to definitely do, and that's something needed. Because from the child rights perspective, it doesn't matter what is the conflict, it doesn't matter who is the origin of country where they come from, who is the host, but it is important that their rights are preserved, protected at all times. We saw the nice, the AV, which also highlighted the positiveness of providing education to children and the right kind of space for them and all that are there. I was also recently, I'm sure some of you or many of you would have watched the movie in Netflix, Swimmers. I think again a story of resilience. You see how Syrian young women are trained to become swimmers in the international competition. Because of the conflict, they get displaced. They are moving in boats with other refugees, and how they play the role of, in fact, saving the boat by swimming themselves, jumping into the water, and then they drive. And apparently after reaching their destination of safety in host countries, how Yasra Madini, how she is able to fulfill a dream of going up to participation in the Olympic Games. These are, I think, some fantastic examples of resilience. Today you almost have in the Olympic squad a group for a refugee contingent. Today they are able to, play that. It doesn't matter even if they have missed their country or moved away, that they are able to participate in these kind of arena or interesting field. I'll just close by saying, I think that we need to codify, consolidate as civilizations, as cultures, how we have played a role of protection, care, needs to be codified more. You have more of humanitarian agencies who have done that codification, but I think it should also, be followed from people's perspective of how nation states have shown empathy, compassion, and that should, come in the forefront. And we need to, I think, create certain awareness where we could address the issues of xenophobia, the fear of outsiders, the others coming in and taking our resources kind of a thing, or not very well informed or evidence based things. I think we need to ensure that we could support people who are in need. The question is this, that I want to close by saying, nobody wants to be a refugee in the first place. Nobody wishes or volunteers to become a refugee, but they are forced to become a refugee. If so, it is a commitment on the international protection front, on the international community's role that we have on the humanitarian perspective, that we have the ethics of care, ethics of protection, which highlights and takes care of refugees in general and children in particular. With this, I would like to thank you all for your patient listening. We would like to have more questions in the thing. Thank you very much to the organizers again for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Parivelan. The talk was truly knowledgeable. Indeed, nobody wants to be a refugee by choice. Now we have our prominent next speaker. And as the world's only true universal global organization, the United Nations has become the foremost forum to address issues that transcend national boundaries. We are delighted to have a representative from the United Nations among us, Ms.Yasmine Sherif, who has traveled all the way from New York to share her valuable perspective today. She is the UNICEF Director for Education Cannot Wait, which is the United Nations Global Fund for Education in Emergencies and Protracted Crises. Ms. Sherif has served in some of the most crisis-affected areas of the world, including Afghanistan and the Middle East, the Balkans, Cambodia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Sudan. Please welcome Ms. Yasmine Sherif, who will speak on Education Cannot Wait's investment in education for refugee children. Please put your hands together for Ms. Yasmine Sherif.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I feel so honored to be here at the Harmony Foundation. And thank you very much for inviting me and the founder of the foundation and your lovely wife and all of you. And I have to say this. I dreamt all my life of being of service since I was a young child. And you will not believe this, but the inspiration came from India. I read everything about Gandhi. I was always fascinated by the philosophy of the Vedas, of the Upanishads, and studied everything he wrote. And then I followed the work of Mother Teresa, a woman of principles and great compassion. And I looked up to her. Then I would go to ashrams and meditate, because I think it's about consciousness. It's really about transcending oneself for the larger humanity. So I'm here, back in India, where I've been many times before, but all the work that I have done over the past 30 years also came somewhere from all the philosophies and great beliefs and the great role models that India have produced. And probably the great work of Mother Teresa in Calcutta and the great work of Mahatma Gandhi in ending colonization for India. Now, I will speak to Education Cannot Wait. So we are a global fund in the United Nations hosted by UNICEF. And our job is to make sure that every child and young person, adolescent, has an access to an education so that they can realize the dream. And I loved that the video that you showed us. I really loved it because it's about dreams and potentials. And our priority, what we focus on, are children and adolescents who suffer in the hardest, darkest spots on the globe. There are 222 million of them. 222 million dreams of children and young adolescents, as we saw, from Afghanistan to the Rohingyas in Bangladesh, to the refugees and IDPs internally displaced in Sri Lanka, to Syria, to the children of the young people in Palestine and the refugees from Palestine in UNRWA refugee camps, the Syrian refugees, the Iraqi refugees, the Afghan refugees, and then across the Sahel and the sub-Saharan Africa, Chad, Central African Republic, Cameroon, Mali, South Sudan. And it was nice to see how much India has done for many of the refugees in neighboring countries seeking refuge in India. And I think India is worth an applaud for that. And to the Harmony Foundation, because you are keeping these issues alive, and I think the title Compassion Beyond Borders means a lot. It means both for a refugee, it's very special, and I've worked a lot with refugees over the years. They're actually crossing an international border. So they go into a different country that is not their country, where they have no real legal status unless they've been given asylum, which is often not the case, cannot attend to public schools, are left in camps. But it's also Compassion Beyond Borders, which is one nation, one people. It's one humanity. There shouldn't be any borders. And a lot of colonialism was about that, drawing up borders. And a lot of the crises we see today come from that. It all started hundreds of years ago. And no one should be grateful for any support that is being received from those who created the problem. We need to turn things around in this world and create more justice and social justice overall. Anyway, education cannot wait. We serve the whole United Nations system. So we are hosted in UNICEF, but as education cannot wait, we have become our own global fund where UNICEF is a member, World Food Programme is a member, the High Commissioner for Refugees is a member, Save the Children, and many other different organizations are local. They are members of Education Cannot Wait, because we become a global force, a movement, a platform for the 222 million children and young people who are in conflict, climate-induced disasters, and are forced to flee, either across the border or inside the country. Now, if you look at what we have done so far, and I'll explain a little bit what we are doing, by 2021, we became operational in 2017. We were created at the World Humanitarian Summit, and the one that led the creation of Education Cannot Wait was the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Gordon Brown. And he got governments and organizations to proclaim Education Cannot Wait as the first global fund for education in emergency and protracted crisis at the World Humanitarian Summit. So in 2021, we have reached 3.7 million children with a holistic education. And I'll explain what that means later. And last year, we had doubled that almost to 6.9. And as I speak, we have surpassed 7 million children and adolescents in all these countries who receive a holistic education. And of this, we started with, we started in 21. By 21, we had reached 1.1 million refugee children. And last year, 2.7. And 50% of all our investments go to refugees, which is about 30%, 20% to internally displaced, and the other 50% are those who have stayed in the crisis situation in Aleppo, Aleppo, in Balkh province in northern Afghanistan, in Jaffna, in the camps as internally displaced, in Gaza. They haven't fled, but they are still suffering. That's 50%. Refugees are 30%. So over close to 7 million. And you will see from the beginning, in 2020, we supported less refugees, internally displaced, and then those who stayed behind. And this has, as was said today, as refugees have gone up to unprecedented numbers since the Second World War, more and more refugees are supported, more internally displaced, well, it's gone less and more refugees, and then those who are staying behind. But all of them are affected. And I would say it's really, when we speak about, we speak rights beyond borders, we speak humanity beyond borders, all of them are suffering deeply, traumatized. And the only way for them is to keep their dream alive, as your beautiful video showed. And we have increased allocations here over the years. I don't want to look at these numbers. I can say, if we go to the next slide, I told you there are 222 million. When we were called upon to be created, there were an estimated 75 million. But because the refugee flows, there are more wars, there are more protracted wars, more refugees, more suffering, more internally displaced. It's gone up to 222 million. This is shocking. It's a scandal. It's inhumanity. It's an utmost form to see that 222 million children and youth who are living in such dispossession cannot even access a quality holistic education. And that's what we are advocating for and doing. We are doing it. It's not just talking it, we are doing it. We are making it happen. When COVID-19 happened and no one could travel, my team and I, and we are about 35 staff, but we work with all UN agencies. We said, put the masks on and practice social protocol or protocol for COVID, and let's go out in the fire. Go to them. Let them know that we are there for them. We cannot run away when there are challenges and risks. We have to be with them. I have, with my teams, I've been through situations where you see internally displaced fleeing with barely the clothes on their body, from villages being burned to the ground. I have gone through Israeli checkpoints in Gaza with army after army, where people are kept in an open air prison. I have been to the poorest villages of Afghanistan, where parents are so poor and families are so scared of Taliban and terrorist groups that they don't even dare to let their girls go to school. I've seen all of that. And I've seen in all that suffering and misery so much resilience, so much strength. If we only gave them a holistic education, they could reclaim their birthright to reach their potentials and realize their dreams and the dreams of their societies and their nations and the dreams that this world deserves. So holistic education for education cannot wait means, do we have more slides? I have to wrap up. There are no more slides, so leave that one. It means it's not just about reading and writing. We need to read and write. This is important. But all of these children are traumatized. They need psychosocial services. They need trauma counseling. They have seen their parents killed. They have lost their sisters. They have lost their homes. They've been at gunpoint. They've been abused, been subjected to sexual violence. I was in the Democratic Republic of Congo just 2 months ago. 200,000 girls have been raped in eastern Congo. Little girls like this. You need trauma counseling. You need school feeding. Who can learn on an empty stomach, or if you are impoverished? You need proper infrastructure. You need good curriculums. You need trained teachers. Teachers are often also victims themselves from a conflict. You need to create safety so that you are not abducted from the school. In a place like northern Nigeria, you have Boko Haram abducting girls going to school. In Afghanistan, it's been banned by the Taliban. There's so much that you need that is centered around the child, and that's what education cannot wait us. We bring together UNICEF, UNHCR, Save the Children, World Food Program, all of them to work together. And if the government is collaborative, the Minister of Education, we work with them to create schools, training of teachers, school feeding, trauma counseling, and make sure that these children get everything that corresponds to their needs. And that stimulates them to dream and achieve their potentials and to realize, and I will conclude here, that the strongest potentials on the globe are those who have suffered the most. And as deep as down as the suffering has taken them because of wars and conflicts, that matches, it corresponds to the heights that they can achieve if we just give them a good quality education. And I am convinced that if we all come together, governments, private sector, the whole world come together and invest in their education, we can turn the tide of this world and make this world a better place of social justice and compassion beyond the borders, everywhere, for every child and young person. Thank you very much to Harmony Foundation. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sherif, for sharing such valuable insights on education cannot wait's remarkable work. And as much as she said that she is convinced that when we all come together, we can make a remarkable difference and make this world a better place of social justice. Indeed, I would request each and every student, especially who's joined us here, to get in touch with amazing organizations like Harmony Foundation. Look out for opportunities to volunteer, be part of events and places where such kind of chaos take place and where we can create a natural awareness towards it. Now we have our next speaker for the day who has traveled all the way from Italy. He's a writer, human rights activist, and CEO of the non-profit organization Still I Rise. He was also nominated for the 2020 Nobel Peace Prize for his commitment to the education and protection of refugee children. Please welcome Mr. Nicolo Govoni on stage, who will be sharing with us Still I Rise's experience in providing high-quality education to refugee children. Please welcome Mr. Nicolo Govoni.
Thank you. 260 million. That's the number of children who are out of school worldwide right now. It's a number that has been mentioned many times. We've seen a lot of numbers today, and a number is a number that a lot of us know all too well. 1/5 of these children is displaced, either internally or as a refugee. This number is well known, but sometimes, or for some of us, numbers this huge are hard to visualize. They're definitely hard for me. It is a massive number that I'd like to put into perspective a little bit so that we can understand better what we are missing out on. This number is 14 times the population of Mumbai. It's 32 times the population of New York, and 173 times the population of Milan, which is where I come from. It is a huge, immense number, which spells out a loss that is not necessarily only individual. It's not only these children as human beings who are missing out on something, a life, a future, education. It's the whole of us, right? It's all of us as human population who are missing out on something that is very special. So if you guys get FOMO when you're not hanging out with your friends on the weekend, let me give you some actual FOMO, right? This, every time a child does not access education, the impact on the entire population of the world is almost incalculable. There is an economic impact. Research shows that there is a direct link between the years you spend in school and the income that you will receive. So this is the GDP, the annual GDP of the cities that we mentioned before. Imagine that GDP times those children who are not in school. If every child had access to education and could increase their income, the wealth that could be generated worldwide. And I think when we talk about money, a lot of people are going to be listening, right? More than when we talk about refugees. It's not only about money, it's also about talent. What about all the amazing human achievements that we're missing out on? Statistically speaking, 2% of the world are so-called geniuses. Now, that is a very debatable definition, right? It talks about IQ, but we know that to be a genius, IQ is not the only thing that matters. We could argue that not only Einstein was a genius, but also Salman Khan, Freddie Mercury, I guess Justin Bieber for some. We're missing out on a lot of talent. What if the cure to cancer was locked in the mind of a child who cannot afford an education? A child stuck in a refugee camp, a child stuck in a village where education is not accessible. How much brilliance are we missing out on? What is the next musical masterpiece that is not being produced because that artist is not accessing education? What is the next painting that is not being painted because education is not available? What is the next movie that is not being shot, the next book not being written? What is it that as a human population we're missing out on? And this also goes to human rights. On an average, a college degree can mean a healthier life. It means a longer life by up to 10 years. That is because education leads you to exercise more, to be more conscious about what you eat, and of course to have the means to care for your body. Education also means women's rights, girls' rights. When girls go to school, they have lower chances of pregnancies, so teenage pregnancies are also reduced. And these are just a few key images and figures that represent the entire massive loss that we all face when children are not going to school. Not only refugee children, not only displaced children, but all children. Now, that number, 260 million, as I said, is thrown around a lot. And we hear about it quite often if we look into it enough. What we do not talk about very much is quality education, right? Not only education, not only the access to the bare minimum, to schools, but high quality education, right? This is another terrifying number, which shows us that 1 out of 3 children who go to school do not know how to read and write. And that's, again, more human potential that is wasted, more medicines that are not discovered, more research that is not being done, buildings that are not being built, infrastructure. All of that is lost because quality education is not there for everyone. You have schools, but you don't have teachers. You have teachers, but they're not paid. There are countries where mathematics teachers at primary school level are less prepared than a child in a 6th grade. And I want to bring to you guys something that, again, is not very much known, because when we talk about quality education, we tend to talk about the global south. But we could argue that there is an emergency when you talk about schools also in the global north. I'll bring my own country as an example, right? Italy, which is what some could call the developed country, whatever that means. Italy has one of the worst education systems in Europe. 1 out of 7 of our kids does not finish school. 50% of our high school graduates cannot attain the standards in both mathematics and Italian. 50% of students, teachers, and parents are dissatisfied with the school system. We are some of the best schools in the world for anxiety. Our kids are terrified of going to school. And we don't talk about that very much, do we? We do not talk about what is quality education, how do you qualify quality education, and why we accept that school is the way it is, and it's been that way for the past 70 years in most countries. Let me show you an even more terrifying figure. 0.1%. You know what that is? That is the number of children worldwide who can access the so-called elite education. Those kind of schools that cost thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, and that prepare you for the best possible future. The schools that the elite has built for their future generation, where the leading class is shaping the future leading class. 0.1% of children. I'm not talking about refugee children, I'm talking about children, period. That's it. 99.9% of children are going to whatever school is available. So I'm sure the quote that I'm going to bring to you now is something that you know very well. By Nelson Mandela. It's education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. And that's very true. However, don't you think that by looking at these numbers, education could also be the most powerful weapon in the world to maintain the status quo? Don't you think that the moment we build a society whereby only this fraction of the human population can access quality education while the rest of us has to make do, is a society that is inherently unfair and unjust? There is another way. And that way is not necessarily building more of those schools, not more of that 0.1%. There is, I think, a habit, especially in our sector, in the nonprofit sector, that, you know, by throwing money at things, issues will get solved. And that's kind of true sometimes, but it's not very effective, right? The moment you throw money at things, you are throwing more money than needed. So what is a solution? Now, as still I rise, we do not have the arrogance to say that we figured it out. We can say that we might have found a way out of the many. But this is probably going to be the only happy number in this presentation. 96% is our success rate in Syria. As you know, Syria has been a war for nearly 12 years, and it's the most critical humanitarian crisis in the world. It's been for some time, and in a war zone we managed to bring children from, level of complete illiteracy, not being able to read and write, within 1 year to sit for the national exam and re-enter public education. Now, this is not because we are, it's not because we're geniuses. We're not, definitely not part of that 2%, definitely not myself, but we are lucky enough to be the first organization in the world, and I really hope not the last, to have the honor of offering completely free of charge the IB framework of education to refugees and migrant children. For those of you who don't know, IB is considered one of the most exclusive, elite educations in the world. It's a very expensive schooling, and we're happy to be offering that, but that's not even why we could attain this number. That's not why. This is why. Because we designed a new approach to education. It's not an approach that is centered around money. Our schools are not that expensive. In fact, our schools are cheaper than international schools in every country that we operate in. But it's an approach that merges quality education with psychosocial support. Is a method that is built upon these 4 founding elements, and that aims to create a place where refugee children or vulnerable children in general can receive what war, conflict, poverty, natural disasters have deprived them of. Is a school that is also home, is a school that aims to make you feel welcome, is a school that is beautiful aesthetically, is a school that is concerned with the details, and that makes sure that every person that walks into those doors feels valued. Now, this is not about technology, it's not about infrastructure, it's not the expensive stuff that we're talking about. We're talking about the small things. Things that make you feel at home when you go home. Things that make you feel welcome and seen and heard. Now, all of these elements might sound emotional, hard to quantify. It's not true. It's scientific. In a school that is beautiful, pleasing to the eye, where a child feels cared for and safe, a child will learn faster, roughly by 30%. Our second pillar is teacher is a mentor. We create a family. We handpick the teachers so that they can be role models. They can be leads. They're not only there to facilitate learning, they're there to shed a light, to lead into the dangerous and confusing jungle of life. Teachers who are there not because it's just a job, but because they know education changes the world. It's a school that places the student at the center. Now, again, this is a concept in education that is inflated, right? Student-centered education is a concept that we overuse. But a student-centered education at Still I Rise means classrooms that are built not to place the teacher as the protagonist of the learning, but the student, using a method that is based on inquiry and not content. And finally, global thinking. Global thinking is the most crucial aspect when you're teaching refugee children. Children who are, that hail from different backgrounds, different cultures, and that cannot link with one type of content equally. How can you put together a person that is coming from Syria and a person that is coming from Iraq and a person that is coming from Congo and a person that is coming from Nigeria, for example. How can you make education relevant for all of them? How can you follow, for example, a national program, curriculum, and still make it relatable to all of them, make it fair, make it culturally appropriate? Well, you don't follow the curriculum. You do not base your education on content. You base it on concepts. For example, don't study an emperor in history. You study the concept of empire. And every student will design their own learning through the examples that are valid and valuable to them and to their culture, and attain the same objective, learning the concept without having to go through the content. That is what is an individualized education, and that is crucial. A school that is caring, a school that is kind, a school that actually sees you, and a school that, for change, listens, is not only nice. Right? I guess we can all agree that it would be nice if all of us had an access to that. It's not only nice, though. It's essential. It's essential because while 99% of us are accessing whatever is available, that 0.1% of the literal top 1% of the 1% of the world is already accessing this kind of school. And if we want to change the world, if we believe what Nelson Mandela said to be true, then we have to invest more on schools, not necessarily on money, mentality. The way we see education, the way we see our children, and the way we see ourselves as people who are valuable and have something to say, and they might not be within that 2% of geniuses in the world, but could be geniuses if given a chance. I want to thank Dr. Madai and the Harmony Foundation for this honor on behalf of all of Still I Rise. And thank you guys for the attention.
Thank you, Mr. Nicolo, for such a truly perceptive talk. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Dr. Dina Sidhva. She's a professor at the Centre for Protracted Crisis, University of the West of Scotland. As a social work practitioner, educator, and researcher in India and Scotland, Dr. Dina's expertise lies in working with marginalized and disadvantaged people to express their voice and agency. Her work also focuses on refugee issues at the global level. Please welcome Dr. Dina Sidhva.
Good afternoon, everybody, both present here in person and online. I'm delighted and honored to be able to present some of my thoughts and ideas in relation to the lives of refugees and asylum seekers, particularly children and young people. Your conference today is especially meaningful, I think, because it touches upon a group of particularly vulnerable human beings, refugee children, who go from one vulnerability to another vulnerability, but whose lives are marked with not only adversity, but the very healing and ultimately empowering resilience that shines through. This conference is also particularly special because it's a conference for students, another group of human beings where resilience, compassion, and passion to be change agents and to change the world is one that I really share. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. The faces of our refugee children from across the globe, from countries as far-flung as South Sudan, Venezuela, Uganda, Pakistan, Yemen, and India, and Ukraine, I thought, given that we are nearing a really terrible anniversary, which is the 10th month of the war on Ukraine on Christmas Eve, it was important for us to think for a minute about the Ukrainian refugee child who you just saw. Essentially, 2/3 of children in Ukraine today have fled their homes since the 24th of February this year. And we're told something really damning again, that a child from Ukraine has become a refugee every single second of the war. A quick background to things that you all already know, and that is that the majority of the world's refugees are children and youth, and that children basically are losing years of their childhood by staying in refugee camps, in settlements, and as you've heard so eloquently, articulately, and powerfully, education, with little access to education. We know that the name for children and young people is today, and that's absolutely a truism for refugee children, particularly children who are stuck behind fences, stuck on islands, far away from home, never knowing when they'll be able to go home. I'm going to just share a few voices of African refugee children who live in the United Kingdom. They're usually called asylum seekers because technically they're asylum seekers, and often their parents are actually deemed as illegal citizens because they've been waiting in a protracted way for their asylum seeking applications to come through to become refugees. There are more people today who are living with HIV, and significantly larger population of black Africans in Scotland who are HIV positive. In a small study that was conducted with asylum seeking children in the UK, specifically within Scotland, what we found was that there were children who were affected by HIV and children who are obviously infected by HIV. But the complications and the complexity of the lives of both children who are affected and infected is really something which creates much misery, pain, and I use those words in a very kind of calculated way. And often it is because of the way in which they're treated, because they're asylum seekers and refugee children. Just want to share a few voices of children who live with HIV. For them, the most important thing was to be normal. One child that I interviewed said, "I want to be like the others in my class. Same, well like them. Same, well like other children's." And another older teen said, "People just try to make the world so complicated, but everything is normal if you want it to be. HIV is just normal. You don't have to make a fuss about it. Like on TV when they talk about HIV, they just try to make out as if it's the end of the world, but it isn't." Really mature from a 14-year-old teenager. These are the voices of two children affected by HIV. They're not HIV positive. One young woman said, 16-year-old, "When my mom passed away, I was grieving a lot. I didn't really mind about HIV until her death. It didn't really strike me until then. I just get really emotional." It continues to be an additional burden, particularly for asylum-seeking children. A younger child said, "My life was quite different to other children. I mean, everybody's got their problems. I just feel that because mine was such a big secret, I couldn't tell anybody." HIV for those affected by HIV for those children who are affected, secrecy becomes another layer on top of all the other anxieties and problems that they experience as asylum seekers in the UK. Essentially, if we could just move to the next slide, please. Essentially, both children who are infected and affected wanted their lives to be normal. Some closing thoughts about cross-border compassion. Is it possible? Of course it is. And how is it possible? We've just heard about HIV, which continues to discriminate children and young people, and particularly asylum seekers and refugees. So how is it possible? I believe, and I think the previous speakers echoed some of these emotions and sentiments, that it's only when we can acknowledge, when we can accept and act upon our shared humanity, that we will be able to express this compassion. And indeed, some of the compassion that is expressed has been highlighted today in the various strategies and programs and really inspiring things that are happening in the world today. And while the issues of refugees remain a really dark and difficult and painful issue, there's as much of light and that's as much of hope if we can really act together on our shared humanity. And when that 0.1% really begins to rise to the 96%, I think that's when we can really hope for true justice in the world. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share very briefly my ideas. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Dina, for an informative talk. Our next speaker is Ms. Helen Atshul, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Refugee, the first and the only organization in Kenya dedicated to working with refugee girls and young women. Ms. Helen is an international development and humanitarian expert with over 25 years' experience, predominantly in Africa. Ms. Helen has joined us online to share her views on the topic today.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Helen Altschul. I'm the CEO of Refugee. I'm grateful to the Harmony Foundation for inviting me to speak at this International Students Conference today to share about our work with refugee girls and young women in Kenya. And I'm very sorry that I was unable to be in Mumbai in person. So according to UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, nearly 90 million people were forcibly displaced worldwide last year, 2021, due to persecution, insecurity, and violence. In Kenya, the country hosts more than 500,000 refugees and asylum seekers from across East and Central and the Horn of Africa, who fled their countries in search of safety and protection. In Nairobi, where Refugee is based, there are an estimated 90,000 refugees, of which more than half are children.
Recording in progress.
Below the age of 17, so 52%, which comes to more than 45,000 refugees in Nairobi. Among the most vulnerable of this Nairobi refugee population are unaccompanied and separated refugee girls and young women. They've fled persecution in their countries and been torn from their families. Many have witnessed the death of their parents. Others believe their families might still be alive but don't know where they are. With limited access to formal assistance in Nairobi for shelter, education, and medical care, they often suffer from extreme poverty whilst they're trying to deal with
physical and emotional scars from war, and in many cases also from abuse and exploitation. The refugees come from multiple different countries, but the majority that we see are from the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, and the Great Lakes region of Central Africa. Unaccompanied refugee girls and young women face unique risk factors, higher rates of illiteracy, fewer avenues for achieving self-sufficiency, a risk of forced marriage and early pregnancy, risks of rape and physical abuse, and a higher risk of ending up using sex as a way of surviving and thereby contracting sexual transmitted infections and HIV and AIDS. Often these girls and young women fall through the cracks of the formal system of supporting refugees, which is in refugee camps in northern Kenya and support by humanitarian organizations in those camps. So they arrive in Nairobi after dangerous journeys, without family, without support and resources to rebuild their lives. So in 2008, Refugee was founded to provide trauma-informed holistic care to this specific population. As was mentioned at the beginning, Refugee is the only organization in Kenya which is exclusively dedicated to protecting, educating, and empowering unaccompanied, orphaned, and separated refugee girls and young women and their children. Many of them come with babies, pregnant, or small children. Refugees' interventions are rights-based, trauma-informed, and girl-centered. Our programs are designed to meet the urgent and immediate needs of refugee girls by providing them with shelter, with safety, and with healthcare so that they can build resilient and self-sufficient lives. But every refugee girl who comes through our door has her own story and her own unique set of needs. To help her succeed, we assign a caseworker to guide her through our holistic programming. Our model is deep and impactful. We're committed to supporting each girl on the journey from protection to achieving her full potential and giving her the power to shape her future. So let me say just a little bit about the programs that we're running. Our biggest program is called the GEP, the Girls Empowerment Program. It's an accelerated education program that allows participants to access basic education and also vocational training opportunities, learn about their human rights, and develop their leadership skills. So the GEP offers a community that provides safety, healing, and skill enhancement for girls and young women on their journey to self-reliance. For those girls who've left their home country before completing their education, we've been providing training in basic literacy and numeracy, followed by a 3-year compressed primary school curriculum, which allows the children to sit for the Kenyan national exams and then later proceed to secondary school. This is we have specialized teachers doing this because the normal curriculum is 8 years. So we've actually compressed from 8 years into 3. And as a previous speaker said, looking at how to contextualize the education for these people who have come, who are not Kenyan, and who are perhaps older than the original curriculum is designed for. We also then boost the socioeconomic potential of children and young women by providing gender-responsive digital skills training and access to job opportunities in the freelance economy. On campus, we have an ICT lab, which is a hub for both students within our Girls Empowerment Program and local young Kenyan women who want to enter the digital marketplace and be able to increase their earning potential working from home anywhere in the world. Then we also have vocational training in tailoring. Our curriculum gives young refugee women and girls the opportunity to gain a recognized vocational qualification that can enable them to earn a living by setting up their own small business. And we also work in partnerships with others for other kinds of vocational skills development. Just yesterday, we had 9 girls starting a training journey in hairdressing and beauty therapy through a partnership with UNHCR Kenya ourselves and the Vera Beauty and Fashion College in Nairobi. We also have girls who are working with DHL, looking at logistics and learning construction through a partnership with an organization called Build Her. So they're learning skills in carpentry, masonry, plumbing, and so on. So we're trying to give as broad opportunities as possible for livelihoods development. The GEP program also hosts an on-site early childhood development center. So the children of our participants can receive training based on the Kenyan curriculum, pre-primary level, which prepares them to enter formal schooling in the Kenyan system at the primary level. And this means that the girls that are in our program are able to focus on their education and not be worried about what's happening to their children. The girls and their children receive 2 meals a day on our campus, breakfast and lunch, and they also get transport allowance to enable them to come to and from the campus, so that we're taking care of their physical needs. All of the participants are also enrolled in our case management program, through which they can access medical care, legal aid, and resettlement assistance if they are looking to move to a third country. Refugee recognizes also, and it was mentioned earlier by one of the speakers, that psychosocial support and healing underpins the success of the other elements of our model. So we have a mental health department, which is working on providing psychosocial counseling and recovery services, and we offer some neuroscience-backed trauma therapies, such as trauma-informed yoga. We have a safe house where we provide protection and recovery for the most vulnerable refugee girls living in conditions that are deemed to be inadequate or dangerous. And then we have a social enterprise that we've developed called the Artisan Collective, which is for income generation. Having gone through the tailoring program, the girls and young women can design, create, and manage a line that we're selling of unique tie-dye fabric and other textiles, which we're selling both within the Kenyan market and also internationally, particularly in the US. While they're within the Artisan Collective, they receive training in business skills and financial literacy, as well as a foundation to make them future successful entrepreneurs. And then finally, we have a community outreach program, which is educating men and women within refugee hosting communities about sexual and gender-based violence. Women's rights and refugee rights. So refugee is trying to build stronger cohesion, trust, and relationships between host communities and refugees. In summary, our programs are designed to not only protect young women and girls, but empower them so they can advocate for their rights, exercise choice, and achieve self-sufficiency. So this is what we do at Refugee. So having worked in the humanitarian and international development space for most of my career, it's obvious to me that creating a more equitable future for everybody is critical to address the complex global challenges facing us today, including the refugee crisis. Refugees are frequently the victims of discriminatory treatment. But while the word refugee may evoke dehumanizing images of people fleeing war-torn nations, most of them did not choose to leave their homes. They were forced to. At Refugee, we challenge the negative narratives associated with refugees. These individuals are mothers, sisters, students, and entrepreneurs with hopes and dreams, just like you and me. We find them to be bold and bright, and they're willing to step up as leaders within their own communities. So to end with, I just want to say that true compassion involves challenging our personal assumptions about refugees and carrying in our hearts and demonstrating in our actions respect for human rights, for human dignity, and the inherent equal worth of every human being. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Helen, for such an insightful talk as to what Refugee does, the amazing work that is taking place. I truly hope that our speakers present with us today were able to shed light on the issues and the pertinent issue of the refugee crisis, especially the children, not just its impact, but also the means to address it. Moving ahead, we now have the question and answer round. We will we would love to have you question or raise queries of any kind with the speakers. Kindly raise your hand and name the speaker for whom you have the question. Could we please, if you have any queries, questions, ways that you would want to know how you could volunteer.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fawadi Clement Olajide. I'm a PhD aspirant from the Department of Civics and Politics, Mumbai University. I just want to like a clarity based on what he said, like regarding the education, connect, and concept. You mentioned the word. So, yeah. Yes, sir. Regarding the question, like the education for the refugee, the connect and the concept. Like if you can give a case study or example, just a clarity, sir.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Could you please just rephrase the last part? So, or maybe I can repeat it back to you if I understood correctly. Like a case study on.
Yeah, when you were saying you mentioned the education, the connect, and the concept.
Right.
So I just want the clarity, like the case study, like to differentiate, like the case study for the connect, case study for the concept, like comparison.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the question. I think it's very valid. So, for example, national curricula are content-based, right? So, for example, the Italian national curriculum will mandate students in schools to learn and schools to teach Italian history, for example, right? Or European history, but mostly Italian history, and geography from an Italian perspective. So you'll have Italian kids, for example, who will know, quite well facts and figures about American cities, right? At the same time, we'll have no idea whatsoever about Lagos in Nigeria, right? Say, and you wonder why, right? And the most, like the gut answer to that is culture. They relate more, it's more relevant. But then that's not really true, because there is a proximity between Italy and Nigeria, for example, in terms of energy, right? So we could argue that, Lagos could be more relevant to Italian students than San Francisco, for example, right? That's just an example, but that's what content-based learning is, where you have a content that needs to be learned for the diploma or whatever certificate to be achieved. Concept-based learning is completely devoid of content. So you basically do not have information that are being necessarily taught. You have objectives in terms of the general understanding of these concepts. So the example that I was making before was emperors versus empires, right? Again, Italian students will study a certain number of emperors that are relevant to Italian history. That kind of education will only be relevant to Italian kids. So how do you make a truly international school and a truly international education that can transcend, particular cultures and traditions? You do not mandate the study of that particular emperor. You mandate the understanding, the understanding of the concept of emperor, then you as a student or myself as a student, we can achieve that concept through whatever examples we feel relevant to us, right? So let's say if I'm Chinese, I will study and research emperors that feel closer to me in terms of culture and history, or if you're Indian, emperors that are closer to your own culture and history. We will both come to the same objective, which is learning the meaning of emperor and empire, and being able to elaborate on it and make connections with modern times. But our journey is going to be different, right? The difference between this kind of education and traditional education is that we are not going to be tested on that specific emperor. We're going to be tested on the concept of empire. So the examples that we bring forward are going to be equally valid, and that's a truly inclusive education. We are content, different cultures, different histories, different ways of seeing geography are seen as equal instead of a hierarchy, a ranking, right? That's how you do truly inclusive education. No problem.
A very warm good morning. A very warm good evening to all the bright minds present here. A very warm good evening to all the bright minds present. Today I, Ms. Mahi Radhamon Agrawal of class 10 of St. George School would like to ask question to Mr. Nicolo sir, as how refugees can be assimilated in the mainstream social structure amid inter-community clashes.
Thank you for the question. I think that's a very big question. That's a very tough question. How can refugees be assimilated into society? Right. Okay, I don't think I am well equipped enough to give an ultimate answer to that. I'm not sure if there isn't one. If there is one, I can talk about our very limited experience as Still I Rise. So something that we do in our international school in Kenya is a festival every year. So in our international school in Kenya, we have 8 different nationalities that are represented within the school population, 7 of them being refugees, and 1 of them being Kenyans. So what we do is this festival that is called Jenga Pamoja, which loosely means building together. And that day, every child brings to the table their own culture and their own traditions. And we saw that, of course, not only through that one day in the year, but it's an example of a wider journey that the kids go through when they join the school. Whatever used to divide them before, which is cultural barriers, for example, become something to be proud of, right? Something that becomes shared. So that day you have different dishes from all over the world that everybody can enjoy and taste. Everybody's dressing traditionally, so that differences can be celebrated, but at the same time also kids can appreciate how similar some of these cultural traits are. Stories are shared, fairy tales, folklore, and by creating an environment where differences are celebrated and they become something that you are proud of, we saw that children start seeing whoever's in front of them as more like alike to them than different. So that's just an example to what we do personally to bridge some of the gaps.
My second question is to Yasmine Sherif. as what initiatives and responses from the world leader for resolving the crisis have been taken? What are the responses from the world leader for resolving the crisis has been taken, especially from the countries that are developed, such as the UK, USA, France, etc.?
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I think this is a very important question. Does it come from you or someone else here? It's yours. It's a very important question. Really good question. It's a good question. The reason, I mean, I remember this satiric drawing once. I have it in my office in New York, over my desk. And there's this big fence, and there's a refugee family standing on that side of the fence, and they're trying to get over the fence into safety. And on the other side of the fence, there is a warrior, military. And the refugee family on this side of the fence look at him and say, "We will stop being refugees when you stop making wars." And that is what it is all about. And these wars have been going on of conquering and taking and stealing and abusing the world's resources and colonizing, enslaving, occupying for hundreds of years. And all these countries are today trying to get good governance, trying to hold on what is left. So then, if I have to be very intellectually honest, happens is that those who have, they say, we'll give a little bit of international aid here. And we give a little bit of money here, and we give money here, and we give here, so that you can, at least we try to make up for it. But there's no real compensation, there's no justice. I'm a human rights lawyer. It's not enough. There has to be equity in the world. So that's number one. That's number one. Make up. There can be no collective, I would say, punishment for what was done 100 years ago. You cannot hold someone accountable today. But we can learn from our history. And we can say that now we want to be civilized. We are not going to conquer. We are not going to occupy. We are not going to use more war. We're going to use non-violence to resist it. Or we're going to use compassion, like Mother Teresa, to mitigate it. So I have to be very honest with you. There are many countries in the northern hemisphere. They do contribute, and I am grateful for that, because with that we can help 10, 20 million, 30, 40, maybe 222 million children and youth and go to school that do give us what they call international development assistance. And we are grateful for that. But we can't be grateful on behalf of all those refugee children who live in that terror, who live in that violence, generation after generation. So what world leaders should do, I think, and I'm really searching for them. If you find one, let us know. Maybe you will be that one. A real leader, they see afar. They can see very, very far. Not just for today or their nation. They can see all of humanity, thousands and millions of years ahead. And it all comes from inside. And then they take the right action of humanity. Go and become that one. Thank you to you.
Thank you, sir and madam. And in the last, I would like to thank this organization and my school, St. George School of Adai, to give me this opportunity to stand before you and have a part here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well asked questions. I want to summarize this as Yasmine said, the whole solution to this problems in the world, as you said, is government and leadership. It is, we need servant leadership. Servant leadership is when people in power, whether they use any means to come to power, heads of states, they feel that power is given to govern, but power is given to serve. So you come with servant leadership, this world will be a much better place to live.
Okay.
Good evening for all here present. I am having a doubt or a questions to Ma'am Yasmine. Ma'am, what is the syllabus or the system behind the refugee children who are mentally having some problems about them? So what will be the system or will the syllabus for them?
Should I come up?
Yes.
Thank you. Very important question, because what you speak about is something that everyone is beginning to see. They should have known this long time ago, but it's better sooner than later. It's children who are suffering both physical disabilities, but also mental disabilities. And sometimes you can turn that around and also say mental other abilities. But they are challenged, they need special learning, special facilitation. And when you go out in countries, we speak about children with autism, for instance, or children who have developmental, challenges, and that often can relate to the fact that they may have been born like that. It can relate to the fact that they have not received the nutrition they needed as they grew up, or the right pedagogy or love in the first years of their life, or simply born as given to us by God, or been injured by conflict. Okay, there are so many ways to end up in a situation, and what I have seen when I have been out there is that when you're in countries that are very impoverished, they're hidden away. They're chained and locked up. Nobody wants to see them. They become a shame to the society. So you are just adding another layer of suffering, another layer of inhumanity. So that education cannot wait. We are committed to reach those left furthest behind. And these children are amongst those left furthest behind on earth. Because not only are the refugees suffering from conflict, on top of it, they are being chained, hidden, become a shame for society. And they need more needs, more specialized support than anyone else. So we look for them. So we have standards in all our investments. And I want to come back to quality education, because that's what it is about. Across the board, is that a minimum of 10% of all our investments must go to children with mental disabilities. If our partners on the ground who implement education together collectively through what we call joint programs that we invest in, if they have not targeted 10%, we will not invest. And of course they will do that because they need to invest, they need the investments, and they work with us and we collaborate, so it's not a force by force, but a minimum of 10% have to reach them. And it's not only because they are voluntarily to come forward. We are fully mindful and aware of that they are hidden away in the dark, chained to rooms, and we go out and search for them. And working with local organizations and working with youth who are less afraid of speaking truth to power, that's how we find them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Sohini and I'm from KJ Somaya College. So my question is not addressed to a speaker in particular, it addressed to the panel in general. So my question is, not everyone shares a positive outlook towards refugees or refugee children, and most of them are treated as outcasts. So what could be done in this regard?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question. The answer is to bring the right kind of awareness among the people. I think, we cannot work in parochialism. We can't, just say that it's only we, our country, our citizens. But I think beyond the borders, as the theme says, I think that awareness is needed. There are also a lot of positiveness I would like to add very quickly. When you, help a refugee, it's about protecting them for a time being and then facilitating the return. Every refugee also has a right to return. Refugee is not always a burden or not to be permanent. But even if they want, even the other questions which came up in terms of assimilation or local integration, if you facilitate, that also makes it more diverse for you, that also contributes to your economy, contributes to your knowledge pool. I just wanted to say, look at Tibets have come in, but the amount of knowledge they have brought here today, it has become a lot of relevance for us. His Holiness Dalai Lama talks about compassionate capitalism. He talks about, secular ethics. These are all needed for the contemporary moments. These value will come only when such people come here and then impart such knowledge to us. Today, we are learning a lot from the refugees who crisscross and come. So therefore, there shouldn't be any fear of it, but that has to be facilitated. More importantly, last one component on that we can't keep a burden, that burden should be shared. Today we are using the word responsibility sharing. Even when I was doing a study in Assam, not to exclude anybody vis-a-vis the NRC, the question came from the Assamese that why the burden should be cornered in one particular place. It should be distributed across. So I think that way we should all have the governance which should facilitate. The people should look forward to treat others, as their own. The Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam is a concept we have in our culture, that the world is one and we are one family. If that be so, we should go beyond borders, as the theme is kept, and work with compassion. And it also paves returns in a positive way. Thank you.
And I'll just sum this up. As you said, people are not open to it. Correct. That's where you all come into the picture. The youngsters, the students, you all should be the change. You all should change your opinion. If you all change, the future will change.
I have another question. Again, this is addressed to the panel in general. So, there is a lot of stigma attached to refugee children. Most of them is due to the negative portrayal by the media. Is there anything that could be done to eliminate this stigma?
It's a very good question, and I want to echo the speakers who talked before me, but also ask you a question. Don't you think it's absolutely bizarre how we see other humans as others? Like, borders are made up. They're not real, right? They're not there. They are a social construct, right? These lines that we decided to draw on the map are completely imaginary. Culture is definitely real and very important. However, I think we can all agree, and it's a very famous quote, that culture does not make people. People make culture. And we have the power to influence culture and change the way we see each other. And I feel, to answer your question, the best way to bridge this gap is raising awareness, right? Like, making sure that people have a chance to interact with a person that is seen as other, and realize that fundamentally, honestly, like, we humans are very much alike. We are, well, biologically very similar to each other, but especially our needs and wants are the same. And I think that's what keeps people apart sometimes, that they do not actually know the other. They might see them on TV and portrayed by politicians or the media, and fall into the trap of seeing them as different from themselves. But at the end of the day, a mother, whoever they are, is going to want the same things. safety for their children and a future and the possibility of caring for her kids freely, and a child is going to want the same things. We just play and rest and family, and a man will want the same. Humans are fundamentally very much the same, and it is absurd that we think that a person that lives in a different country, just because they might look a little bit different than us, is just different, because it's just counterintuitive to think that. So raising awareness, right? Talking about how people are similar rather than how they're different, and celebrating what makes us different as something that is special and beautiful, and just giving. I wish people had a chance to just talk with these refugees on TV and realize that they're just gonna be very similar to their father and their cousin and their friend from school. Yeah.
Question. So, not all refugee children are granted education. Some get involved in activities such as begging, child labor, sexual activities, and some even resort to crime to fill their tummies. What could be done to transfer them to good hands?
First of all, I think my fellow panelists are so inspiring. Thank you so much, both of you. Three of you, and our friend there also. It's inspiring to be in this company, and you are inspiring. I want to come back to the question, because I agree with everything you said, but I want to add a story. I'll take that last. But what can we do? First of all, they become drawn into trafficking or into terror groups or militia groups, or sold off as having unwanted pregnancies or child marriages because of poverty, extreme poverty. So in the larger scheme of things, one would have to change world economics, because there is a clear division between those who have and those who don't have. And that division goes back historically to all the issues we discussed. Those who thought that they were better because they looked differently or they had weapons, and others were there to serve them. Rather than being a servant of humanity, you wanted to be an emperor of your country or your region. And it's created this social inequity around the globe. So that's the bigger scheme of things. But with an education and protection, especially for those who flee from violence, there has to be protection combined with education. Legal protection, where you hold accountable in a law of justice, court of justice, those who are trying to abuse the children and force them into this. And also physical protection, that no one can come and snap them from school. And also make sure that education leads to sustainable livelihoods for them and their families. In Afghanistan today, families are so poor that they're selling their babies, the baby daughters, just to be able to go on for another 4 or 5 months to feed the rest of the family. So one cannot look at education as one sector. One has to look at livelihood, to make sure that the family has resources, that the child develops into independent, self-sustained livelihoods, that governance is functioning, that there is no corruption, that there is a taxation system, that there is social solidarity in a country, that no one is left behind, and that wars are ended. And you can go on, and the circle becomes bigger until you get to the point where world leaders become leaders of service. And I've completely forgotten about that little ego and smaller self and looking at the bigger, larger self, which is the word soul. But I want to tell you a story, and that goes back to the question of refugee children. I think it's important also that the young generation of refugee children, and like you, who is there because you want to serve, is to remember your identity. not to allow yourself to go into that history of colonization, the history of wanting to be like those who are in power and who stole, and don't go back to that. Life moves forward, not backward. And every child needs to know the identity and be proud of who they are and the culture that the people around them created. I visited a refugee camp on the Greek Aegean Islands. You know, there are about 80 nationalities fleeing across the Aegean Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, seeking refuge in Europe. And they are left in these reception centers on some of the islands that are towards Turkey. And they sit there for years. And when I was there some time ago, I met a crowd of very young Afghan boys. And they were sitting, it's very dusty, it's dirty, it's subhuman conditions. I mean, they are treated as if they were, as you said, not human beings, subhumans. And they are sitting there, and these are young boys. Many of them are without their parents, and they have left because they don't want to be drafted into the war. They have left because they are being threatened. Or they are left, the parents have let them go to go and find a better life for themselves. They might be 14, 15 years old. And they were sitting around, and I went up and sat with them. I literally sat like this on the floor with them. Okay, because I want to talk to them like this, not talk down at them. So I sat down with them. Oops. See if I can get up again. We always get up, don't we? And this is what they need to know. So I sat with them on this dusty, dirty floor. And I have lived and worked in Afghanistan. So I know Afghanistan fairly well. And we spoke. And they were young, you know, teenagers. And I could see in them, they had seen a lot of violence. So they were feisty, they were tough. But they were not criminal. And I knew, if they don't get the proper education, a quality education, and deal with the traumas, they're going to be drawn into all of this if they get to stay in Europe. Or if, they might also end up sitting there. So I felt, as a mother of 2 children myself, I felt I just want them to know who they are so that they go out and remember their identity. So I said to them, you are not this dirt, you are not this dust. That is not you. Always remember that. Do you remember? Do you know the great poet Rumi? I'm sure many of you know Rumi. They say, Rumi? Rumi, you know the great poet from Afghanistan. Ah, Mevlana! Yes, Mevlana! And their faces shone. They shone. And I said to them, don't you remember? You are the light that lightens the world. You are the blue lapis lazulis, beautiful blue stones in Herat province. You are the white doves in Mazar-e Sharif over the blue mosque. You are the Buddhas in Baman province. You are that old culture. You are not this dust. And their eyes shone up. This is what they need to hear. This is what they need to know. And then they will go out and tell the world, I am not dust. I am not subhuman. I am. And I think that's also where it's important, that we let them know who they are. And they tell us who they are, so they can define themselves and their relation to the universe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for clarifying my doubts. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, I want to tell you and all the others here, we have had this conference for Compassion Beyond Borders for students to be sensitized to the other kids, all the refugee kids. See, the refugee issue is because of some geopolitical situations, which is too complicated for you kids. That's why we are talking of only kids. For no fault of theirs, they are uprooted from where they were and they are in such a situation. So you all need to be compassionate, you know, as children. Be compassionate to the refugee children and do your best what you can do for them. That is the whole issue. As I said, the issue of refugees is a huge geopolitical issue. So we don't want you all to get into that.
You all just do your part and make their lives better. Okay? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tanishka. My question is directed to Dr. Dina and K.M. Sir. Parivelan, sir. It is not really a question, but rather a topic that I would like to raise. Since we are in an Indian context, I would like to talk a little bit about CA and NRC. We know that refugees in Assam have been deprived of their rights as citizens and are put into these detention camps. And because of the CAA, there has been a very hostile environment for Muslim refugees. So, would any of you like to comment on that? Because I think it is a pertinent issue to talk about.
You couldn't have got a better person than Dr. Parivelan.
You want to say? All right. Yeah, I think as the organizer, Dr. Mathai said, let's not go deep into politics, but still a good question has come. Very briefly, I'll comment on that. See, what is happening about the NRC, National Register of Citizens process in the state of Assam in India, for some of the friends from outside, we should tell quickly the background. We have been in unified India. We got partitioned into India and then Pakistan, and then from Pakistan into Bangladesh. Having been unified India, there have been migration even during the colonial period and even post-independence period. But particularly the 1971 war, which turned from East Pakistan to Bangladesh, led to a lot of migration, in fact, a lot of refugees into India. And by and large, most of them have returned. But there is a perception within Assam that many have illegally migrated. That's where they pushed for NRC, which became part of the 1985 Accord. And subsequently, it got implemented very recently in a little controversial manner. See, the point is to see who is a citizen. You don't have to put the onus on somebody to come and produce a document that I'm a citizen. Rather, you can do a census, survey, take the details, and you can resolve it. We use a word, let's not do an othering process and exclude somebody. Even you used in your word the question whether they are refugees who are getting, no. They are citizens of India sometimes who are brought under the gambit of being an outsider. So therefore, it's put an enormous pressure. So nearly 2 million, from 4 million to 2 million people they've identified as somebody who does not belong here. It is not because they don't belong here, it is because they don't have the papers and documentation to prove that their ancestors came and all that stuff. So this is the reason why we feel that we need to be more humane and see part of our history that we have been together. Let's not call somebody an outsider, infiltrator, illegal migrant, but be more humane. Accommodate who are here, but see to that in the future we can have a better border management. Somebody still wants to come from Bangladesh to India, we should facilitate it with a proper mobility laws. As of now, we have the borders, as our other co-panelists mentioned, these are artificially created. This brings barrier for people to move around, travel, work, or, So therefore, I think these NRC could have been handled better, where we don't need to identify an outsider, but you have better laws which can see to it that the people who come here, come as a migrant, work here, and then go back in a dignified way. As of now, it's not available. People tend to illegally migrate, come and work, and then go. They are being targeted. The CAA, very quickly, the Citizenship Amendment Act, has partly a good intent that it wants to address the minorities in the neighborhood of Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. If they're persecuted, how they could be, their duration of stay could be simplified to be eligible to become naturalized citizens. Now, as you yourself in your question said, there is an inherent bias in that. We as a secular country, secular constitution, prefer to see that anybody who is persecuted should be eligible for protection or the, a logical way of protection or citizenship even. So let us remove the religious barrier or a bias. That's a very important point. In this kind of a forum, we need to ensure that nobody should be discriminated or denied of their access to citizenship or migration just because of the religion. That's the only key point. And that needs to be taken care in a due course. We will do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your answer.
All right, we're going to enlist the last two questions, keeping the timelines in mind.
Hello. Hi, I'm Sahil. My question is also directed to you, Parivelan sir. My question was rather big, but I'll keep it short since time constraints, I understand. So while we have talked about refugees coming from outside the countries, and also we have talked about how India has been accepting the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which you spoke of, the Parsis, the Bene Israeli Jews, or there's also a considerable population of the Siddhis, which have been living in India since the 16th century. What about those people? They're sensitive, or they are rather caught in political turmoil. The situation of refugees who are seeking simply a refuge in their homeland, the people living inside the country. For example, when we speak of the Kashmiri Pandits, or when we speak of the gender minorities, racial minorities, the marginalized, vulnerable groups. And what about a newer generation, the children who are born from the people living across the marginalized? What can we do, or how can we tackle this sensitive situation?
Thank you. So the organizer has said, or rather cautioned, that I want us to be very brief. I'll try to be very brief. My dear good friend, very good question you asked. What we need is, when we are talking about refugees, forced migrants, I think we need to understand the different labels and different categories. So we discussed elaborately today about refugees and refugee children who crosses an international border. Somebody who is affected in a similar generalized violence, conflict, even disasters and other reasons, and getting displaced internally, we use the term IDP, internally displaced persons, right? That's a framework available. UN Convention on IDPs are available. We do have our own internal laws which address some of these displacements. The displacements could emerge from broadly three categories: conflict-induced, development-induced, and it can also be disaster-induced. Today we can bring climate and all that. So you referred nicely an example. If somebody is internally displaced, what do we do? I think more important is to bring context here. What is the context? If somebody is affected development, there are development-induced laws, for example, within the country called LARR, Land Acquisition, Resettlement, Rehabilitation Act. As a framework, we are addressing the development-induced. Very humane it has become now. You have environmental impact assessments followed, social impact assessments followed, all that stuff, and how they are rehabilitated. Today, compensation goes double or triple the amount of the land somebody has to give for the sake of development in order to get compensated. These are all very humane and good, very people-friendly and all that. Now, if somebody is affected by a conflict, internally displaced, you referred about Kashmiri Pandits and all that as an example. I think for conflict, we have not done much. We have Muzaffarnagar violence, we have Kandamal violence, we have Godhra violence and all that. I think conflict-induced, we have to go more and see to it that we have better protection, better rehabilitation, better care for such people who are traumatized, affected, displaced. A range of rights which some of our co-panelists talked about, range from health, water, sanitation, shelter, to even a security, a sense of security, a sense of belonging has to be promoted. So all that are addressed. So these all come under the IDP, internally displaced. Let me quickly tell two more categories just for the sake of answering you. That could be asylum seeker, somebody who can be an economic migrant. For economic reasons, somebody wants to come. I think these all needs to be distinguished clearly to govern better. Therefore, I used the term, we need a better mobility law. As of now, we have very fluid and very kind of a vacuum kind of a thing. We treat a refugee in a similar way, and an economic migrant in a similar way, an IDP in a similar way, and there's a confusion. I think we are also endeavoring that our laws, policies, and practice can be better structured to address the needs of these kind of people. Last category is also called statelessness underneath forced migration, which we have not touched much, that can require a lot of time separately. But somebody who is denied of nationality or citizenship, Anna Ardent had said that to become a stateless is to be denied of right to have rights. Let's not put anybody to be denied of such rights. We need to ensure that everybody born on this earth, they should belong somewhere, they should have nationality, they should have citizenship. There's a new gambit emerging that somebody can be denied of nationality who fall under the cracks of not belonging to this country or that country. Today, Rohingyas are a good example. They're denied in their own country, they're stateless people, they're fleeing as stateless refugees. So let us address all these with the different categories as per the requirement, and we need to be more humane and compassionate again. The solution lies there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rohit K from St. Xavier's College. My question is for all the panelists here. My question is that, yeah, so there is a lot of refugee crisis happening, and there is there are families who are not able to take care of them because they're not able to earn the living, and even the children are forced to do menial works and all those things. So my question is that what are the various ways or methods to provide employment opportunities for refugees?
I'm going to give you a very, very small example of a project that we recently did in Jordan with Syrian refugee women, and how you can begin to build the welfare of a family through women. So we did a very small project which looked at empowerment of women by women understanding about gender-based violence, because these were all women who were in a particular organization where they'd experienced really bad violence during the COVID lockdown. And we clipped together the empowerment aspect along with giving them particular entrepreneurial skills. So this small project was really very useful in making women conscientized or aware of their lives and how the years and generations of injustices that they've experienced, how they can change some of those things for themselves. But we also gave them specific skills, and we brought in people both from the government in Jordan, but other businesses and other philanthropists who gave us money to start up 10 women who have now started small businesses. And I think that's just a very small cameo of how you can empower women and refugee women to begin to take more control of their lives, to be more conscientized about their lives and their surroundings, but also to use skills and entrepreneurial techniques for people to actually begin to have economic and social development. Thanks.
Okay, we can do the final last question. Yes. Yes.
Hi, I'm Anamta, and I'm from Wilson College. My question is to the panel. What do you have to say about the victims of child trafficking and labor? Now, when they are rescued from such rackets, many times they aren't accepted back in their homes, or due to some reason, their family isn't around. They too then become refugees as well. Why are these social child refugees not provided with the same asylum as that of political refugees, be it culturally or in terms of education or overall development?
Anybody wants to speak? Can go ahead. Yeah, I think I'll just attempt it. I think other panelists also can add on. I think you're raising about an important question. If children are trafficked, they become victims of not only the exploitation, but also the luck. I think I just draw the connect to what Dr. Abraham I referred earlier about how to connect and bring the children back. Some of his projects, the one which he is involved is also a SEAL organization, which tries to track people, rescue them, and reunite them. I think I see that kind of a model which is very important. So children trafficking prevention is one gambit. The source of it could be very many reasons why they are trafficked in the first place. We need to have, we have systems in place today how within the country or even cross-border. Lot of times you have people who get trafficked from neighboring countries like Laos, Cambodia, Bangladesh, Nepal and all that, and then trafficked and brought here and exploited. So I think that coordination is also emerging now, how across the borders you reunite them. I think that kind of framework we are also working on. I think it's very important to ensure that we bring more awareness and vigilance, which can prevent in a way. It's very difficult otherwise. Today you have these kind of events happens in many places. Precisely the fault lines are then conflicts, climate, disasters, generalized violence, and protracted crises sometimes paves the way for children to be, to be made vulnerable and trafficked and all. I think we need to address these issues in a very holistic way, and other co-panelists referred about the role of education, how it could empower and bring more vigilance, more awareness. I think these have to be done well, and within the borders and across the borders, I think we need to have a better coordination to address this complex issue. What you referred as trafficking has been a severe issue in countries. Even right away, we have many colleagues within Mumbai and other cities. We keep working, and it's very difficult to stop it. It keeps happening, and that's a huge racket, huge mafia, which works, caters to a variety of these things. So I think we need to address more from the roots of it, and also look at from the consequence point of it. That's my brief comment. Other colleagues wants to add anything forward? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and to see so many questions coming in actually is a sign that such conferences are working. There are questions being raised, answers being beautifully crafted and told. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this conference. At the outset, on behalf of the Harmony Foundation, we extend our sincere gratitude to the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and Dr. Parivelan for their monumental association with us for the 18th year of the Harmony International Students Conference. I thank our prolific speakers. Come on, we got to clap for them. They've been giving their lives to a cause that is so close to them and to us. And their rich insights on the pressing issue of the refugee crisis, particularly the impact on refugee children and the channels for addressing it. I would like to thank them again for sharing their wisdom with us today. That's the wisdom that comes out of experience and a heart that beats for other people, and making this conference a truly intellectually nourishing one. And now my utmost thank goes to the youth present among us and the reason for this conference. I thank you all for joining us today. You were a wonderful audience. We will be sharing your participation e-certification by email, and please do not forget to go and collect your lovely meal for you for being such an amazing audience. To this end, our motive was not just to sensitize you, but also motivate you to do your bit when you come across next time to a refugee or a refugee child. Something as simple as love and compassion takes it a long way. Issues like this can be resolved when we follow a benevolent path and treat others with kindness and the niceness that one human should extend to another. And you are the youth, we are the youth, the future of our society. Probably what my parents and your parents thought need not be the way we think about refugees. And we truly hope that you will always let love and kindness lead your decision making, lead the way you address other humans, and make this world a better place. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the speakers for coming forth, and I would request all our speakers to come on to the stage for a group picture, and we could end with that. Thank you so much once again.